welcome to Talk This.
It's dangerous to podcast alone.
I've learned how to move, so now we can jump forward 18 years or so, host Madelyn.
I'm your permanent bad knees debuff host, Emma.
We're a few years overdue visiting the Buddha statue.
We must return to the Buddha, host Emma.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's show. It's my side quest, and as I think I said this on some of the shows coming up, sort of jokingly, but I'm doing it for real, because I tried to do game trailers, and then we looked, and we'd already done that in 2022. So we're talking about aging in games and aging.
Heck yeah.
Not a lot of games about turning 30.
No.
What's up with that?
I don't know.
Not a lot of Saturn Return games.
Nobody wants to, everybody wants to nostalgically look back at their somehow still in the 80s childhoods, right? They don't want to look back at their turning 30 times.
Why not? Famously flirty and thriving. Why don't people want to look back at this time?
I don't know. They don't want to look back at their 20s either in video games, honestly. They really just only want to look back at their teens or when they had their first child.
Okay, are you ready for my hot take to start the episode?
Sure.
Okay. So a lot of games about being a teenager, right? A lot of media about being a teenager. Fun time in life.
Yes, it's turbulent. There's drama. There's feelings. There's multiple significant events happening to you one after the other. That's why things are set in high school a lot of the time.
Also a lot of video games about becoming a dad.
Yes.
Not a mom. We've talked about this. Mom's not really allowed.
Yeah.
Man, who's gonna make like a pregnancy video game?
There must be something.
I'm sure there are, but who's gonna make Alien, the game?
Sure.
I wouldn't expect it to be actually about pregnancy. That's too horrifying. But who's gonna make the, pregnant allegory game? Anyway, a lot of games about dads. I think, hot take, there are currently not a lot of games about being an old person or aging in general. In fact, the Wikipedia page category, video games about old age, features only 30 games, some of which I think are tangential at best. So not a lot of games about being old, but I think that in about 10 to 15 years, in the same way as we got a bunch of dad games, as all the game developers had their daughters, right? And realized that they should make games about dads and that maybe daughters have things to say too, right? We got dad games, and then as their daughters grew up, they were like, oh, my daughter's a human being. I realized this.
Right. Yeah,
and I'm going to make a game about her now. I think that we will get a bunch of, oh, I'm an old person now, video games as they reach that stage of life.
I did play, either last year or the year before, I played The Stillness of the Wind, which is sort of about being old, tangentially. It's like a farming sim. You're an old lady running a farm, but as the days pass, you have less and less energy to do things, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
That's one that popped up. I bet that's not on the Wikipedia page, because I bet it doesn't have a Wikipedia page.
What did you say it was called?
The Stillness of the Wind.
Is not there. So 31 games.
Yeah.
Interestingly, subcategory on this page. The category has only the following subcategory. Video games based on DuckTales.
He is old.
You're not wrong.
His name is Scrooge, right? Scrooge McDuck.
Scrooge McDuck.
He's old. He's an old guy.
He is. True. Just interesting that's the one subcategory. I made my own subcategories for aging in games. There are not a lot of games that approach aging as the main subject matter, right? Yeah. Even though aging as the main subject is sort of the main subject matter of what we're doing here. So not a lot of games that really tackle that as something that's really key to the narrative. It's there. There are games. Look, the game that invented narrative deals with aging to some extent. So we'll talk about that. But some general kind of categories that stuck out to me as I was thinking about this week, right? We've got aging as a mechanic, right?
Yes.
And that kind of falls in the category of, it can be a debuff. You usually see a lot of aging related debuffs. Every once in a while there's aging buffs, or at least aging like it's a mixed bag kind of mechanics. We've got aging as sort of a delineator of a run, right? So in sim type games, or sometimes along with the aging as a debuff thing, it's like, oh, eventually you get old, and that's why you can't play this game forever.
Usually in those games, when your character dies, it passes it on to, like, the child, like in The Sims, for example, or, like, Crusader Kings type stuff, so on and so forth.
Speaking of children, one of the major ways in which we actually see characters physically age are games where there's a character that starts as a child sidekick and, like, grows up over the course of the series.
Yes.
We mostly don't let our adults age too much in video games. But a kid is allowed to grow up.
To be fair, I do feel like, in the inventor of aging, The Last of Us, and like The Walking Dead, and I don't know, I'm sure I could think of other examples, but in a lot of these things,
probably God of War over time.
Where like you see the child grow up, the reason that the adult doesn't get older is because they die. Right? In those games, there's sure a lot of people dying.
That's fair. I'll grant that.
Although, like, in The Last of Us, like, Joel does look, like, notably older between the first game and the second game. True. I do think.
Then we have aging, but only for a major time skip, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we'll talk about Fire Emblem, probably. Subcategory, with some really funny examples. You are a child in the tutorial.
Mm-hmm.
And then we are going to skip forward. A lot of that. A lot of, like, you are a kid and now you are an adult stuff. Or you are a baby, which is probably the greatest example, and let's come back to that. Then there's aging, but all it really means is you have a new haircut. Fire Emblem Three Houses, I'm looking at you.
They look older.
They do. I'm, like, joking, but...
I mean, it's the difference between being, like, in your late teens versus your early 20s, but they do look older after the time skip.
I know. I'm kidding. I'm joking. And then finally, and the ones that I wish that there were more examples of these, because this is the tasty stuff that I actually really want to, like, think about. And not uncoincidentally, it's like, oh, what are the series the Talk This hosts love? What? Kingdom Hearts and Yakuza Like a Dragon? You're telling me these are the series where we see characters at least a little bit, or in weird, inconsistent ways, age across a long-running series? You're telling me I'd like to see more of that across the games that we probably talk about? Do they age in Cold Steel?
They do.
Yo! Wow,
There's
very Talk This core.
I can't remember if it's 2 or 3 years time skip between 2 and 3. So... But yeah, time does pass in those games.
And also aging as a gag. Being old as a gag. Yes, my notable example of this, which I thought was so funny, Metal Gear Solid 3.
Oh, right, yeah.
Has a boss, a sniper called the End, right? So he's like at the end of his life. And he's, like, really old. He's, like, saved all his strength for this, like, final battle, right? And, like, within it, if you, like, wait enough in between shooting him or whatever, he'll, like, fall asleep. So, like, haha, he's old. But then, in an all-time aging-related gag, if you are in the middle of a fight with him, you save your game, you leave it alone for 8 real-time days, or you cheat and start in your PlayStation forward 8 real-time days. But that's bad. I don't condone that ever.
Yeah.
For a game where time is a thing. Like, live through your life. You must age a little bit to earn this.
I hope in the remake, like, that's in, but if it senses, like, somehow that you changed your clock, he's actually, like, regressed in age.
He's Benjamin
like,
Button.
40 years.
He's now like an Adonis, and he murders you.
Yeah.
Like, it's like copy protection stuff that I love, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
So yes. So anyway, if you save your game, wait 8 real in-game days, and you start it again, he will have died of old age.
Yeah.
And Snake's a little disappointed about that, to be clear. But I think that that's maybe the greatest example of aging. And like, we'll talk about a lot of other games here. I don't think there's anything that beats that, with the possible exception of Assassin's Creed 2.
No, Metal Gear has a lot of creative stuff with just, like, using the hardware. But none of them, that's the only one related, I guess, to aging, I would say.
It's very good. It's very, very good. Also, just general sidebar before we get into games overall, like we've been saying, not a lot of games about getting old, or not even a lot of games about, like, aging through adulthood. There are also, not surprisingly, not that many old characters in games. AARP did a study based on the 2023 best-selling games on, like, Steam and consoles, and only 7% of the
I was going to say 70%.
Sorry, only 70 years old. 7% of, like, human-ish looking characters are 50 plus. I don't really know how they determined this, to be clear. Like, they have to have done some, like, oh, like, that person looks old, like, has old looking stuff, which you'd think AARP would be, like, avoiding overall, but whatever.
Also, they would probably get it wrong sometimes if they were just going off vibes, because the amount of, like, grizzled mentors in Japanese RPGs that are, like,
27.
35.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But also, I didn't like this, so I was like, oh, like, I see this. So older characters not proportionally represented. More than 7% of people are old. But when they are, they tend to be white men. So we don't get old women. We don't get old people of color. Not surprising, but, you know,
yeah,
notable. And also, even in games with character creators, only about 40% of them let you, like, make a character with traits that would noticeably be you're playing with an age slider, basically. Which I also thought was really interesting. Because, like, man, we love character creators. We love customization in, like, every possible way. And, like, we love funny customization, too. And, like, sorry to old people, but, like, being able to make a very old-looking character is kind of amusing. But also, as this article and study pointed out, like, the people who are senior citizens now are now old enough to have been the earliest gamers, or not the earliest gamers, but people who were really at the, like, beginning of popular gaming. And it's really interesting that our character creators even have not caught up to the fact that, like, these people are out there. They do play video games. There are senior people playing video games. And
Skyrim Grandma.
Skyrim Grandma is out there. Is she?
I think she just changed to be Oblivion Grandma instead because the remake came out.
Okay. Relieved that I did not learn something live on this podcast here. So, you know, that's a population of people who play games, and it's, yeah, AARP is not thrilled that they are not represented. So let's get into some specific games, shall we?
Sure. What do you want to talk about?
Well, should we... Okay. Let's talk about the games that use aging as, like, a mechanic first. So, like, I think most notable example of this in recent years, or most, like, not notable, but kind of core to game example of this in recent years is Sifu, which is one thing I was thinking of when I picked this. We talked about Sifu maybe sometime in the past year, certainly not sometime in the past 2 years. We did a podcast on it. But it's a game where you're a martial artist, and over the course of it, like, you start at age 20, and every time you die, right? Every time you die, you age. Yeah. And interestingly, unlike many games where aging is sort of tied to just, like, oh, you get less strong over time. Like, we just talked about Sid Meier's Pirates couple weeks or
weeks
months ago. Time's a little fluid. But in that game, right, you're a pirate, you age over time, but you really just get worse. Pretty much. You like, and as you get to the end of your life, it's just like, oh, like it's pretty much impossible to win a battle anymore. So that's like aging as a, okay, like you don't get to play in this sandbox forever and get stronger and stronger forever, buddy. Like you're 40 now.
Yeah.
Like no more fighting for you. In contrast to some games we'll talk about where 40 is really where the fighting begins. Anyway, in Sifu, unlike that, aging does come with some benefits. So while you are losing health over time, you are gaining damage. So like the idea being that, you know, age comes with wisdom, but also frailty. And so like that's an interesting use of it, and something that's like really core to it, and your character, you know, gets white hair over the course. It's not a particularly realistic depiction of aging, certainly. It's not like you get punched and then you age. I mean, maybe you do.
The idea is like you're defeated, and so you go and train for a certain amount of time and then go back again, sort of.
Yeah.
So.
But like that is like one of the few games that came to mind to me where your character getting older is like core mechanic. You talked about Zanki Zero, which I haven't heard of.
Yes, this is my weird game knowledge. It was a Spike Chunsoft game from, I don't know, like a decade ago now, maybe? Where you play as like a bunch of clones like trapped on a desert island. I don't really know much about like the story concept of it, but essentially how it works is you're clones and you essentially have a lifespan of like a very compressed amount of time. Like I think it's like 2 weeks. And over the course of those 2 weeks, you age from being children to teens to, you know, your young adult, middle-aged, old person sort of stages of life. And then either, you know, from illness or dungeon crawling stuff, or just from old age, you die and a new clone is made with your experience, and you go through the cycle again. So you can bring like a certain number of these characters in your party, and, you know, based on what stage of life they're in, they have like different effects. Like I believe like kids recover health faster, but they can't carry as much stuff as adults. And like
that's real.
Old people like help with, I think you have like a motivation type stat, right? They've got like their old people wise wisdom sayings or whatever that keep you motivated on
Nice
explorations or whatever. So there's like benefits and drawbacks to like being the child and old person stages versus the more sort of balanced teen to middle age type stage. It seems like a weird game to me. But
it was surprising to me, the
concept sticks in my head.
That there are not so many games that do this kind of thing. This seems like such a kind of a natural, I don't know, we love our like roguelikes now. I don't know, this like cycle thing of changing your character's abilities over time or whatever. I don't know. I was surprised to not find that there were more games that utilize this kind of mechanic in a central way.
Yeah.
Unlike, I guess, actually, I will say, there are actually a lot of games that do utilize aging as a central mechanic. And you know what they are? They're Madden, they're FIFA, they're any sports game where you have a career mode.
Right. Yeah.
Do you think that they will, well, one, that Reddit comment was really funny about Madden. Please give us a dramatic reading, Emma.
So this was a Reddit thread where it was on our game recommendations, I think, or our gaming suggestions. And they were asking for games where like the aging really matters to the experience, and honestly talked mostly about a bunch of stuff that we will bring up here. But the very bottom comment from MC4
with a -1 rating, which it does not deserve,
said, "There's a game called Madden that I play. It is an American football sports game, and the age of your players heavily affects their performance. Shit game though, 0 out of 10.
Very good. Thank you, MC4. 2 years ago.
I just like the having to be like, I guess, like clarifying what Madden is.
Yeah, it is an American football sports game.
Which maybe if I don't know how well that's recognizable internationally.
That's
I guess.
true. How well does Madden sell globally?
Yeah. I don't know.
Do you think that they will have to change this in sports games, though? I feel like there are notable examples of old guys being really good at football in recent years.
They could have like a like random like latent trait that can like trigger in certain players. That's like they get markedly better for a while as they get older, instead of the normal like I'm tired.
Honestly, that would be kind of sick. That'd be a cool thing for them to work in. Because it's true, right? Like, I don't know. I feel like we're seeing in many sports, like, notable stars who are way older than you think someone should be allowed to be and still be good.
Good you added that add on there at the end. You're
yeah,
just
they're way older than someone should be allowed to be. Right? I mean, like, we don't have gymnastics video games, really, but, like, you know, like, all the gymnasts are super old now.
Right.
And by super old, I mean younger than me. But
yeah, exactly.
You can get the idea. So yes, so I'm wrong to say, of course, in, like, like, simulator games, it's all, like, The Sims is only about getting old, really. So I don't mean to say this isn't there. I just mean to say outside of games that are, like, very simmy, there's not a lot of it.
Yeah, obviously in like The Sims and Crusader Kings, like there are things that you can only do at certain ages and things that you have to do at certain ages, kind of like life. So hence why they're Sims.
Yes. Exactly.
It did remind me a little bit of I Was a Teenage Exocolonist too, which
I still have to play.
I would put under sim games, although it's just from 10 to 20 in your life. So there's less like, oh, like in Crusader Kings where you're like, I must get married now, I must have the child now, you know, so on and so forth. And more like you start to understand things more as you grow up into older teenhood that you didn't really get when you were a 10-year-old, for example.
But see, that's a really interesting implementation of this, because I do feel like for the most part, aging in sim games, is potentially about life milestones, or it's about something that's impacting your gameplay, right? Or impacting your gameplay in a physically focused way. Like, I'm stronger, or I'm weaker, or like health, power kind of thing. And it's interesting to hear you talk about an application of this where it is instead focused on like understanding. I mean, that's a really hard thing to put into the game because, of course, like the player is whatever age they are, and so it's kind of hard to be like, oh, like you didn't understand this thing that you learned when you were 15, but now the character does. Like, that tension is difficult, but that is really interesting to contemplate. How do you, not in a like, haha, your magic power is higher because you're wise kind of implementation. Right. How do you actually implement the hopefully learning more things over time of getting older?
Yeah.
I also have to give a special sim shout out to Monster Rancher. The monsters dying in that game is traumatic.
You're right. Do your dogs get old in Nintendogs? I don't remember.
No, they don't. Thank God for that.
They go from puppy to adult dog.
Yes, they do not age past adult dog. Can you imagine?
It feels like something that Nintendo would do, though, for some reason, you know?
Okay, I hear you, but also, no. Can you imagine? All those people bought Nintendogs for their children on their Nintendo DS, and the dogs die? Anyway, my point being, a game where I'm sure somebody brought that up in a meeting. Someone was like, should the dogs die? Like, I'm sure there were many meetings about...
Oh, yeah, I'm sure they talked about it, yeah.
But, like, no. That's an insane thing to do for a game that is targeted at children caring for a virtual dog, to be like, it is going to pass away.
Something I think about in because they just announced a new one of Tomodachi Life, where you like make people in it and have like your little town. And it does like sort of encourage you to be like, you can make people in your real life, right? But like children do age in that. I guess it would be at the same rate, right? As like if you based it on a real person. But and then they can like get married and stuff there's just child and adult. So if you're an adult, you can marry another adult in Tomodachi Life, which I feel like would be very weird.
Yeah, no concept of age
Dynamic-wise.
gap relationships in Tomodachi Life, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, the only concept of familiar relationship it has is if a couple has children. So they would be, if they had children, the children would be siblings, but you can't like make two me's in that and be like they're siblings, at least in the original. I hope that they add that for the sequel, like add like more family dynamic.
Yeah, and also dogs that can
Options.
die.
And also dogs that can die.
That's what Emma's really lobbying for here.
No.
Some pet death. Okay, so like that's aging where it like does something to your gameplay. Also, like the rare aging buff, by the way, comes in Fable. They cut this in like sequels, like this, and because there are things about this that don't make any sense, basically. But in Fable, your age increases like fast at the beginning. There's like a guild, there's like a training thing at the beginning where you age up quite quickly. And then every time you level up a skill, you get like 3/4 of a year older. Which is funny because nobody around you ages, and your character in that game has like a notable sibling, and the sibling doesn't age. So like you get old. You get very old. I liked this description from the Fable wiki. The hero's skin will start to wrinkle and sag at age 27. Relatable. Emma and I can attest.
True.
His hair becomes gray at age 37.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah. His hair becomes white at age 43. And he has a significant amount of gray hair and wrinkled skin at age 50.
So it becomes white and then goes back to gray.
Yo, I don't know. So that's how people age. Everyone look forward to it or look back on it, depending on where you are in your aging journey.
Makes sense.
But yeah, people didn't love that because, yeah, it was like there was actually no way to be young and powerful. The only way to be powerful was to be an old man.
Right. It's kind of like Kiryu-core.
Yeah.
The one man allowed to age.
Well, yeah, okay, so let's get into it.
The
With Like a Dragon a little bit. I'll save my Assassin's Creed baby thing. Don't worry, I'm like continuing to tease it. So Like a Dragon is interesting, right? Because I mean, it's a narrative story in which they have a child who is allowed to age, right? Haruka does really grow up from age, is she 10 at the beginning?
I think so.
Oh, that's so sick. Haruto's gonna be 10 when they release Lad 9. Oh, I'm ready. Let Haruto out. That'll be so cool. Anyway, never mind. And you know, they release them in like very much in real time, so the characters age in real time. This is an interesting thing, like generally in games, right? The idea of like, oh, you're kind of like growing up with the characters, except in this case, the characters are middle-aged to senior.
Yeah.
With the exception of Haruka, who is 10.
Yes.
So no one who is playing these games is growing up with the characters because hopefully you're not playing them at age 10. You might be playing them alongside, you know, Kiryu. But like, It's an interesting dynamic of oftentimes like in TV shows or in long-running games, it's like, oh, like, yes, like we're scaling to who the player is. And these games are like aging people, but not really doing that, which is neat. But I don't know. I do sort of feel like the aging is done in a somewhat graceful and interesting way through kind of the original Kiryu Saga games, right? Where it's like, oh, like Majima does like actually look kind of older in 3 through 5 because he's been leashed to the Tojo clan, and he looks sad and old, right? And like Haruka does age, and like we kind of see Daigo grow up from like the brawler boy into the chairman of the clan, right? Like we do see the characters age a little bit, but I feel like they've written themselves into a corner with these games. And it's interesting to see them age, right? It's interesting, like there's story relevance to like the ways that these people are grappling with their lives. And I've talked plenty on this podcast about like, oh, Yakuza 5, where Kiryu is like, actually I've wasted my life on this, but like actually this is who I am and this is what I want. Oh, it's choice. So there's like interesting grappling with that and with aging, and now they're in a position where they still want these 60-something-year-old men around and brawling.
Yep.
Which is a little tough.
I was thinking about this. It does kind of remind me of, a lot. You could make a lot of comparisons between Like a Dragon and like soap operas.
Yes.
And it does kind of
remind
remind me.
It's not even
that.
a comparison. Just
I know, but like, like there's people on soap operas who have been on that soap opera forever, for their whole lives.
Yeah.
Right. But I feel like because of the entertainment industry, there's a point where they're not allowed to look older.
Yeah.
And that kind of reminds me of how it is in Like a Dragon right now. Like, yeah, they're technically getting older, but they still got the same sort of plot lines that they had, They're getting their little bit of their Botox, they're dyeing their hair, that sort of stuff.
And all of that is sort of fine, except that how far can we push these guys being at their physical peak?
Well, according to Majima in Pirate Yakuza, 60, A-okay. 65, that guy's old and is not allowed on the pirate ship.
I know, I played that side quest too. Yeah, it's a really weird tension in Pirate Yakuza because people are like, oh, old man. And then, except when he's not. Which is real. That's a real thing that can happen to people, but it is a little odd. And, particularly against, so like we've sort of allowed Kiryu to age in these games, right? He's got gray, he's mostly been allowed to age because he has cancer.
Yes.
But like some gray even before that, then getting more, but he's mostly only been allowed to age because he's sick. And even, and you know what, to their credit, right? Like skinny Kiryu, right? Did change the model, unlike Majima, who is as ripped as he was at 21 at age 60, which may we all be so lucky, I guess. But like the women are certainly not. They are ageless.
Yeah.
So notable in this in 8, where we were doing so much like looking back, and it's like, oh, like these gals who were hostesses with us in like 2006 pretty much still look like 2006.
Yes. And I think it was particularly notable in that because they did have Ichiban's mom, who was an older lady and had an older lady's model. Yeah. Right? And so looking back at these people that should really be like around her age. Yeah. And it's like, what did you do? The deal with the devil.
I just think we're at a critical point now where they have to decide, like, are these men immortal? Essentially. Yeah. I think that Yakuza 9 is like more or less, and I'm disappointed about this in many ways because I love these characters and I would like for them to be immortal in many ways. Like, I know you want them to hand it over to Ichiban. I respect that. I respect that. I would be ready for it, but also I love my old boys. Sure. So I'm still happy to have them around. But it does feel like a turning point where, okay, like all of these guys are 60 to 65 now. How long can we keep them around and fight before we really decide, like, actually, no, they are getting old?
They have been leaning more and more into supernatural elements in these games.
That was crazy when they were like, this guy might be 300 years old.
Yes. So I am kind of expecting them to go the immortal route.
No, you're not.
I am. That's what I'm expecting them to do. That I don't think they're gonna move on from these characters for at least a while until they come up with another new protagonist. Is sort of what I think. So I mean, they're making a game possibly with an immortal protagonist. Seems what Stranger Than Heaven is going to be.
But that's different. That's separate. I don't know. I'm still hopeful that this series that cares so much about like legacy and is interested to some extent, at least in posturing and passing the torch and like family and what it means to be separated from people from a period of time. Like they do so much storytelling that only works because of the passage of time. Or even like the evolution of the Yakuza over time, right? There's so much in this game that is about years passing that I want to believe that they're going to give us some kind of like actual one last stand in this next game, and then we really can, these guys will still be in the game, I'm sure. They'll still be around. But I'm really hopeful that we can like do something meaningful with that because it would be really interesting.
Well, we'll see.
We shall see. All right, time for a moment of levity. So, a lot of games, like the time passage, the aging, really only happens in like one big jump, right? Like we don't really see characters age over time, and like that's hard. That's a hard storytelling thing to do. I get it. It's very normal structure for us to be like, we've got a portion of the game that happens in this time, and then we're gonna jump forward 5 years or 10 years or whatever, and people are older now. What happened in the meantime?
There's like technical limitations to like steady aging for characters too, I feel like. Because you have to make different character models, which is a lot of work.
Yeah.
So you want to limit yourself usually to the number that you have to make.
Exactly. But so lots of examples of this, right? Like a more robust version of this is the Fire Emblem Three Houses thing, where you really have it's not even really a tutorial, right? It's like a first half and a second half.
Yeah.
Or but the funniest example of this, the absolute funniest example of this, or Horizon Zero Dawn is more of a like, you're a tutorial as a kid, and now you're a teen.
Yeah.
Right? So we see that happen. Ocarina of Time, like lots of examples of this. But the best one ever is Assassin's Creed 2. And this is not long, and it's not even really constituted a tutorial. Like, why did they do this? Who was like, yes, this? But it's really funny. So in Assassin's Creed 2, the game more or less begins with there's a woman giving birth, and then you
Pregnancy game.
What? Pregnancy game. You're right. No, not pregnancy game. Like one moment of birth. End of pregnancy game. And then you play as Baby Ezio. Baby, the character you will play. Where in the game is like, move your limbs. Learn how to move your limbs. And then we flash forward.
I wonder if this is like in the like sci-fi framing something that's happening, and that's why they're like, you must be baby first before you can be not baby.
Yeah.
That's my only guess why they were like, you need to move your baby limbs
before
really
you can
play
the
game.
My best guess is someone was like, it would be so funny, and they all did it. So that's the best example of child tutorial and then adult game that exists, and it can't be beaten, and I think all games should consider it.
On the time skip also, I made a revelation of, I really like the character development haircut trope.
Sure.
Where, whatever, maybe it's a little reductive, but the woman cuts off her hair, and that's like, she grows up, right? She becomes more mature.
Look, I love Mulan as much as the next person.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I was thinking about games with like time skips, and two of them were Crisis Core and Near Replicant. And I realized that for the girl, the character development hair is you cut it off. For the boy, it's you get a mullet and you grow it out.
So if you're a man out there looking to experience some character development in your life, consider a mullet.
Yeah, I think in Crisis Core it's just like a 2 or 3 year time skip, and in Near Replicant it's like an actual like he goes from being a child to like being a teen and on the verge of adulthood sort of time skip. But both of them grow their hair out in that period. Nier becomes voiced by Ray Chase suddenly.
If you are a man considering character development,
Hire Ray Chase to speak all your lines for you.
consider it. We do also have the like over series time skip. Like it's not always within a game. It's always child to adult, pretty much. But over the course of a series, we can see young man to dad.
Yeah,
like that's allowed. Predominantly in a long running.
Phoenix Wright.
Sure.
The rare time skip, like we were saying, is from like 20s to 30s.
Really rare. I mean, 20s to 30s just not allowed.
Yeah.
But yes, if you are a protagonist in a flagship PlayStation title, you will probably over time grow from young man to dad.
Is this Uncharted?
And God of War.
And God of War, you're right.
But particularly Uncharted. Uncharted 4 being a notable aging example.
Yeah.
Well, we can't talk about anything about storytelling without talking about the game that invented narrative. And as Emma said, and as I said in the notes, invented the concept of aging.
Right. Yes, The Last of Us. We still have not watched the last episode of season 2.
We're so close.
But some interesting aging-related thoughts on the adaptation on TV.
They really leaned into Joel being. I mean, I was reading online. He's like 4 years older or something than he is in the games. Which, okay, sure, but they've really leaned.
As we learned from Fable, that can make a big difference.
Sure.
Goes from white hair to even more gray hair.
And visible wrinkles.
Visible wrinkles.
But they really took Joel down a peg a little bit. They're like, remember in the game where you were crouching everywhere and you had supersonic hearing? This man has bad knees and he can't hear a thing.
Yeah.
Which is realistic, but would work badly in a stealth game.
Yeah. And unfortunately, Bella Ramsey, they
are
were
ageless.
unable to make them look distinctive between the seasons in the way that the character model in the game does.
Which is really, look, it's no one's fault, right? You can't know. Well, except, as I was saying to Emma when we were watching the show, I think that...
I think they could have done more in the wardrobe and makeup department for them.
You're right. But what I want to say is that I do think a casting director whose job is to cast, like, young people who are going to age probably does have to have a skill at identifying, oh, this is a young person who will look 15 for 10 years.
Yeah.
Versus this is a young person who is going to look 30 in 6 months.
Yeah. This was, that was in response to me thinking maybe they didn't put any of the Abby stuff in this season because they didn't want to cast Lev and then wait for 3 years before. It's probably wait for 2 years before the next season. And Madelyn was saying, you just have to find the child that won't age.
Right. Which they exist. And, like, that's actually your job if you're casting that role. Sorry. So, like, you have to be able to figure it out. But The Last of Us also had, like, notable in the games, like, between... It might have even been from the original just to the remaster. But, like, it definitely from the original to the remake. Of Tessa's character model being really adjusted to make it clear that she is, like, Joel's age, not young.
Yeah.
So the rare case of a character within different editions of a game. Aging.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, it is tricky. Like, we just watched the big, like, Joel flashback episode, and, like, The Last of Us 2 had, like, separate, like, bespoke character models for all those stages of Ellie's life, which you just, like, unfortunately can't really do with a real person.
Yeah.
So it is tough. It is tough.
No, it does. It's another challenge of the game adaptation. I mean, lucky for game TV shows and movies that most games are not that interested in characters changing over time, because it's really hard.
Yeah, they're gonna have the same problem with what's her name, Caitlin Denver.
Yeah, Dever.
They're gonna have the same problem next season when they're doing her flashbacks, because she looks so much younger in the game because she doesn't have her muscle definition yet, and in the TV show she does not have muscle definition. Period. So
hopefully they will find some other signature trait to vary back and forth.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, do you want to talk about Sora Kingdom Hearts?
Yeah. I think a lot about around when, I think this was like the announcement of Kingdom Hearts 4 was like happening.
How much does it suck they had to announce that so early and then we've gotten nothing since then?
It was art for one of the orchestra tours, I think. That Nomura drew that initially had Sora, Kingdom Hearts 1, 2, and 3, and then like an empty pane essentially on it. That was then revealed with his drawing of Sora Kingdom Hearts 4. And it's just like yeah, he's old. How old? He's 14 in the first Kingdom Hearts, right?
Yeah, I think he's supposed to be 17 now.
Yeah. And you know what? He does look it. There's like significant difference, I think, especially for boys, like a lot of the time between age 14 and age 17. And yeah, he does. It's weird. I feel like with Sora Kingdom Hearts, it's especially weird just because of like how much time has passed in my life, right?
Well, it's really weird, right? Sora feels like a character that you should have grown up with, except that because the way these games release, everyone has outpaced him.
Yeah. I mean, well, it's almost more than that, right? Like, I didn't grow up necessarily with Sora. I was way younger than Sora when we were initially playing Kingdom Hearts. And now I'm way older than Sora, so it's kind of just like I've rainbowed him, sort of.
Yeah.
You know? I've arced him. Which is interesting to think of, like, the relationship as a player you have with, like, a character that was once, like, older and, like, cooler than you, right? And is now, like, little baby boy.
Well, especially with the sacrifices that he makes in Kingdom Hearts 3, right? And, like,
yeah,
it's interesting to, I feel like, looking at that from a perspective of being, like, younger than the character versus being older than the character feels a little different.
Yeah.
There's some notable controversy, apparently, among the community about whether which characters are allowed to age.
Well, there's, like, discussion, I guess. I don't feel like the rules are that...
None of the rules in this series are that, you know?
The nobody designs are a little weird when you think about them, but whatever. They just look slightly different than themselves. That's fine.
The thing is that Nomura said in an interview like 15 years ago that nobodies don't age, and now people are like, that's the word of God, except some of them obviously do age, so it's weird.
I just feel like you need your heart to be like a real person, and if you're not a real person, you're not really aging.
Well, so then you concur with Reddit user Jadari.
Yes, the confusion over Xigbar, I feel like, is explained by the end of Kingdom Hearts 3. So,
where do you stand on Huey, Dewey, and Louie?
Yeah, they're right. No hearts. No, I don't know. Ducks age differently. There you go. That's just a true fact for you.
Do you think that Huey, Dewey, and Louie are actually a person, a nobody, and a dream eater?
That'd be good.
I really feel like I'm on to something there. As I said that out loud, I was like, Tetsuya, are you listening? I've got something for you.
Anyway, one of my favorite fun facts is they always base Kairi's haircut on the current haircut that Utada Hikaru has. Which is extremely funny to think about, like, them aging too, right? And having, like, different haircuts based on their own age.
Kyrie's about to have a middle-aged haircut.
Yeah, exactly. No, I don't think they've changed their hair much since Kingdom Hearts 3. It looks pretty similar to me right now. But we'll see by the time of Kingdom Hearts 4.
Yeah. Does Mickey Mouse age?
Yes. As he ages, as we've seen, he becomes less black and white. He gains color.
Nice.
We saw him. We saw young Mickey in several
Mick.
places, actually. So yeah, he obviously does age.
Does that mean that Yen Sid is going to die if I save the game and come back 8 days later?
I think that he should. Yeah.
God, I haven't thought about Yen Sid in some time, and saying that out loud just made me...
I'm hyped for Yen Sid. Yen Sid and a photorealistic phone. That was like one of the only new like actual bits that were in the screenshots they shared back when they canceled Missing Link was like a photorealistic phone.
Give it to me. Okay, to close this out, Emma, are there characters who will certainly never age in games that you wish would? Like, do you want to see an old Mario?
Old Mario would be very funny.
Old Mario and Luigi game would be pretty good. Like,
yeah.
cranky old, like, Muppet Men.
Yeah. The thing is, I was thinking about this too. There's not actually many, like, long-running series that are, like, sequential in video games, I feel like. In the way that, like, Kingdom Hearts and Yakuza is, like, sequential, right?
Yeah.
A lot of, like, the long-running series are anthologies in video games. Or they just only have a couple of games in them. Right?
Well, it's more or less possible to make a sequential game where you're gonna have enough entries for that to be meaningful now, right? I mean, it takes too long to make a game.
Yeah.
You have to have started it 20 years ago. Comment on aging there, I'm sure, to be made.
But yeah, so it's hard to say, like, oh, I think this character should age because there's just not a lot of, like, sequential games that I play.
I think Sonic should age.
That'd be very funny too. You're right. All the little mascot characters are good answers.
I'd like to see old Link.
Now there's an idea.
Right? We've seen Child Link. Where's old Link? Missing Link.
They've got like the baby versions of the Mario characters, like in Mario Kart, right?
Yeah.
I assume those are those from something, or are they just things they made for Mario Kart?
Mario babies.
I feel like Googling Mario babies is kind of risky.
It is. Oh, they're like from Yoshi's Island.
Okay. But they have,
he doesn't
like...
have a mustache. That's freaky.
Why would he have a mustache as a baby?
I just sort of felt like he would always have had one. Okay. Anyway, go on.
Anyway, they have the baby versions, so they should have the old person versions as well.
It's a good idea.
Those would be good unlockable characters for Mario Kart World. Charge another $10 for them. Raise the price to $90.
Worth it.
Just for the old people.
Old Wario would be pretty good.
I know. That's what I'm saying. Old Waluigi. He tries to do his, like, kicky things. He breaks his hip. he rolls off the track.
Well, on that note, listeners, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Talk This.
It's dangerous to podcast alone.
Are you feeling existential dread over any milestone birthdays? Are there characters you would like to see old? Do you wish there were more games that were about getting old? Do you support my hot take that in 10 years all games will be about getting old because we can't make games that aren't about what we're going through at that exact moment? Do you think more games should start with the character as a baby before cutting forward? If you have thoughts about this or anything else we talked about this week, hit us up on social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Blue Sky, and YouTube at Talk This Podcast. You can also visit our website, www.talkthispodcast.com, where you can read all about the show, check out the games in the hat, and read our blog. But most importantly, if you enjoyed the show, you ought to subscribe. We're on Apple Podcasts, YouTube Podcasts, TuneIn, Spotify, Pandora Podcasts online and on the app, Overcast, Pocket Cast, wherever you can find podcasts. Subscribe to Talk This so you never miss an episode on Sundays at noon. Next week we're talking about some games.
I believe it's Kerbal Space Program.
It's definitely Kerbal Space Program.
And Skin Deep.
That one I'm less confident in, but
I'm pretty confident on that one, so we're both confident about one of them.
Between the two of us, we're very confident. So look forward to that, and then Emma's podcast in 2 weeks. Emma's side quest podcast in 2 weeks.
Yeah, we'll see.
Be about something.
Got something.
Game related, probably.
Maybe.
You never know.
We'll see.
Anyway, that's it for this week's show. Emma, sign us off.
This week, I hope that you feel young and new.